The explosion tore through the convoy like thunder. Sand, smoke, and fire swallowed everything in seconds. Sergeant Riley Ward hit the ground hard, ears ringing, lungs burning, dust thick in her mouth. Through the chaos, she could barely make out the silhouettes of the SEAL unit she was embedded with, scrambling for cover behind the wrecked Humvee. Her radio crackled. Half dead from the blast. Alpha team, report. Alpha, do you copy? No response, just static. She tried to move, but her left leg screamed with pain. Shrapnel. Bad. Still, she crawled, dragging herself toward the nearest crater as bullets chewed the dirt around her. A shadow loomed over her, one of the SEALs bleeding from his temple. Riley, stay down. I'm hit, she managed, pressing a trembling hand against her thigh. He glanced back at the line of fire, eyes wild. We have to move. Command says fall back. What about the others? She asked. He hesitated. Just long enough for her to understand the truth. They were leaving. Riley. She shoved him away. Go! He hesitated again, guilt flashing across his face. Then he disappeared into the smoke with the others. Within seconds, their footsteps faded, and she was alone. The gunfire slowed. The air grew still, except for the moans of the wounded scattered across the sand. Riley forced herself upright, every muscle screaming in protest. 3 SEALs were still down, half buried in dust and debris. She recognized one, Petty Officer Daniels, barely breathing. She ripped off her torn sleeve and tied it around his chest wound, whispering, "You're not dying here." Another lay face down near the burning wreck. She dragged him out, coughing, eyes streaming from the smoke. His pulse was weak, but there. The third, a kid, barely 20, was trapped under twisted metal. She braced herself, lifted with everything she had, and screamed as the jagged metal tore her palms open. But the beam shifted. The kid gasped. Alive. All 3 of them. Alive. As the sun dipped low over the horizon, Riley limped between them, gathering scraps of gear and salvaging what she could. Ammo, canteens, medical tape. Her leg bled through the bandage. She ignored it. No comms, no backup, no chance. But quitting wasn't in her vocabulary. She looked toward the distant hills where the SEALs had retreated, miles of burning sand, between her and safety. She glanced at the 3 wounded men beside her. None could walk. All right, she muttered, voice hoarse. Then I'll walk for all of us. She tore a strip of canvas from a destroyed truck, made a crude harness, and tied it around her shoulders. Then she started pulling. Every step sent pain shooting up her spine. Every breath burned. Behind her, the wounded groaned softly. Not words, just sounds that reminded her why she couldn't stop. The desert swallowed the daylight, and the cold crept in. But Sergeant Riley Ward, left for dead, forgotten in the smoke, kept walking. Because if Command had abandoned her, she'd prove she didn't need Command to bring her team home. And by the time dawn came, she'd already decided. No one was dying on her watch. The night desert was merciless. The fires from the ambush still burned behind her, faint orange against the black horizon. Every time Riley looked back, it felt like the earth itself was mourning. Her boots dragged through the sand, each step leaving a trail of blood. The makeshift harness creaked as she hauled the 3 wounded SEALs behind her on a torn canvas stretcher. The load was impossible, 250 pounds of dead weight at least. But stopping meant dying. Every few meters, she whispered to herself. One more step. Just one more. The youngest, Daniels, stirred weakly. You should have left us. Riley didn't look back. Already heard that line today. You won't make it. Then I'll crawl. Silence followed, broken only by the low rasp of wind and the soft drag of the stretcher over the sand. She kept moving. Through dunes, through cold that gnawed at her bones, through pain that blurred her vision. Once she stumbled. Hard. The canvas nearly flipped, dumping the wounded. She caught it just in time, falling to her knees. Her body screamed to stop, But then she heard something. Not words, not footsteps, just the faintest murmur of a voice. Mom. She turned. It was the kid, delirious, his face pale as bone. Mom, I can't see. Her throat tightened. She crouched beside him, brushing sand off his face. You're gonna see baselight soon, she whispered. Just hold on. You're not done yet. He didn't answer. His breathing slowed. Too much. She ripped open her med pouch, tore into an adrenaline injector, and jammed it into his thigh. He gasped, then coughed, alive again. She smiled faintly, even as her vision spun. That's it. Breathe, Marine. Hours passed. The stars wheeled overhead, distant and cold. The desert seemed endless, dunes rising like waves, each one taller than the last. Riley's strength bled away with every step. At some point she began to hallucinate. Flashes of light in the distance, phantom voices calling her name. She shook her head violently. Not yet, she muttered. Not done. Her radio sputtered again. Static, then a broken voice. Alpha, this is Command. Anyone read? She grabbed it, almost crying. This is Sergeant Ward. 3 wounded SEALs in tow, requesting evac coordinates. Static, then silence. She slammed the radio down, rage flashing through her exhaustion. You left us. She stopped, took a deep breath, picked it back up. No, I left no one. You hear me? No one. She started walking again. By dawn, the horizon turned silver. Her lips were cracked, skin blistered. She could barely see straight, and then, gunfire. Distant, echoing from the direction of the hills. Friendlies? Enemy? She couldn't tell. But the wounded stirred, and hope flickered again. She climbed the last ridge, dragging the stretcher behind her. Her body gave out halfway up, legs trembling, lungs searing. For a long moment she lay there, staring at the sky. Then she remembered Daniel's face, the kid calling for his mom, the promise she made. With a guttural scream, she forced herself upright, inch by inch, pulling the stretcher up the slope. At the top, she froze. Smoke. Vehicles. The SEALs, her unit, were there, alive, setting up a perimeter miles from the blast zone. Her voice cracked as she shouted, Next time you leave someone, make sure they're actually dead. Heads snapped up. The camp went silent. Every soldier who had written her off stared in disbelief as she limped toward them, dragging 3 men behind her. Bloodied, burned, unbroken, and alive. The medic sprinted forward. Sergeant, what the hell? How did you— Riley cut him off with a rasping breath. Patch them first. Then we talk. She dropped the stretcher, fell to her knees, and finally let the darkness take her. The last thing she heard before passing out was the medic shouting, She brought them all back. When consciousness finally returned, it came in fragments. Light bleeding through her eyelids, a soft beeping somewhere nearby. The sterile sting of antiseptic in the air. Riley tried to move, but pain hit like a hammer. Every muscle screamed. Her chest felt like it had been trampled. She gasped, forcing her eyes open. White ceiling, canvas walls, a medical tent. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then she heard the low murmur of voices outside. Orders, boots, the familiar cadence of a forward operating base. She was alive. But the memory of the fire, the ambush, and the faces of the wounded came rushing back. She tried to sit up. A medic appeared instantly. Whoa. Easy there, Sergeant Ward. You need rest. Her voice cracked. The SEALs, are they— The medic smiled, a small, knowing smile. They made it. All 3. You dragged them 15 miles through hell. They're calling it a miracle. Riley let out a shaky laugh that turned into a cough. A miracle, huh? I'll take that. He hesitated. They've been asking to see you, but— Command got here first. She frowned. Command? Before he could answer, the tent flap opened. 2 men stepped in. One in desert fatigues with silver oak leaves on his collar, the other with the unmistakable trident patch of the Navy SEALs. The SEAL officer spoke first. Sergeant Ward? She straightened as much as she could. Sir. He studied her for a long moment. You carried 3 of my men through an active kill zone. On foot. Alone? Yes, sir. And you disobeyed the evac order? Yes, sir. He exchanged a glance with the other officer, then looked back at her. Do you have any idea what you did? Riley's lips twitched. Broke protocol? The SEAL gave a short, dry laugh. You shattered it. The Army officer folded his arms. You also saved 3 lives and exposed a breach in our comms system. The ambush wasn't bad luck. Someone fed your location to the enemy. Her pulse spiked. You're saying it was inside job, the SEAL cut in. And those men you brought back? They were the only ones close enough to hear what really happened. Riley went silent. The SEAL officer leaned closer. They're alive because of you, Sergeant. But that's not the part that's got everyone talking. She frowned. Then what? He straightened, eyes unreadable. It's the way you came back. The night you returned, every transmission, every satellite feed, they all caught one phrase on loop. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a radio log, and handed it to her. The page was smudged, but she could make it out clearly. Reaper 1, en route, not leaving anyone behind. Her blood ran cold. That call sign hadn't been spoken in years, not since the classified mission that nearly ended her career. She met his gaze. You weren't supposed to know about that. He smiled faintly. We didn't. Not until last night. Outside, the camp had gathered. Soldiers, SEALs, medics. Word had spread fast. The woman who'd been abandoned had walked back through the desert, dragging 3 men who should have died. When she finally stepped out of the tent, the wind hit her face. Warm, full of dust and diesel. Conversation stopped. And then, one by one, the SEALs she'd saved rose to their feet. They stood at attention, battered and bandaged, but alive. Daniels, the youngest, snapped a salute. Permission to speak, ma'am. She blinked, surprised. Granted, he grinned. Next time they tell us who to trust, I'll remind them who carried us home. The entire camp erupted in applause, not loud, but heavy, full of something deeper than celebration. Respect. The Army officer stepped beside her. Voice low, command's calling this a rescue. But the SEALs, he paused. They're calling it something else. She glanced at him. What? He smiled. A redemption. The debriefing tent was colder than the desert outside. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and the air reeked of disinfectant and tension. Riley Ward sat at a long metal table, her hands bandaged, her left arm in a sling. Across from her, 3 officers studied her like she was a problem they couldn't quite solve. The ranking officer, Colonel Haze, finally spoke. You were given a direct order to hold position and await extraction. Riley didn't flinch. Yes, sir. You ignored it. Yes, sir. He leaned forward. And in doing so, you compromised an active zone, moved without clearance, and saved 3 SEALs. She interrupted quietly. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut through armor. The colonel exhaled slowly. You're not being reprimanded, Sergeant. You're being questioned. There's a difference, she frowned. Questioned for what exactly? The SEAL commander beside him slid a folder across the table. Inside were grainy satellite photos, the ambush site, her heat signature moving across the dunes, the 3 bodies she'd dragged for miles, and one image that made her heart stop. A red marker on her comms channel. Frequency breach, the commander said. Someone inside this base transmitted your coordinates. We traced the signal. Riley's jaw tightened. Who? The colonel exchanged a look with his aide. That's what we're trying to confirm, but it originated from Command Post Delta. Your last assignment. Riley froze. That was where she'd filed her last sitrep, and where her ex-superior, Captain Joran Mills, had called her a liability. The same man who'd ordered her to hold position and wait. Her voice was flat. Mills, the SEAL commander nodded grimly. We think so. He fed intel to the other side, got paid to set traps for confirmed SEAL units. You and your team were never supposed to make it out. For a long moment she said nothing. Then quietly, he always said we were expendable. The colonel's tone softened. You weren't supposed to be part of that op, Sergeant. You were filling in for a sniper who'd been pulled out injured. That's why the hit went sideways. You weren't on their list. Riley laughed bitterly. Guess luck finally did me a favor. The SEAL commander leaned forward. You're not under arrest, Ward. You're being cleared for transfer. She blinked. Transfer? He slid a sealed envelope across the table. The insignia on it was unmistakable. Silver trident over black. Naval Special Warfare Command, he said. They've reviewed your record. The men you saved requested you personally. Her throat tightened. Requested me. For what? He smiled. For reassignment. You'll be training with SEAL Team 9, Advanced Sniper Integration. Riley stared at the letter like it might vanish. After all this? The colonel's voice was quiet but firm. After this, because of this. He stood, nodding to the others. Dismissed. Outside, the sun was setting, a slow burn across the horizon. The camp was quieter now, the chaos replaced by the hum of recovery. She walked toward the firing range, feeling the familiar weight of silence pressing around her. Every step hurt, but every heartbeat felt earned. At the far end, someone was waiting. Daniels, the youngest of the SEALs she'd saved. He stood with his arm in a sling, grinning despite the bruises. They're saying you're one of us now, he said. Riley smirked. They say a lot of things. He handed her something small and heavy, her old sniper tag, scraped and burned but still legible. On the back, someone had etched a single word, Reaper. She stared at it, emotion catching in her chest. You did this? Daniels shook his head. Wasn't me. Was the Admiral. She looked up sharply. The Admiral? He nodded. Said anyone who carries her team back through hell deserves a name that won't die. That night, as the desert went still, a radio on the command table flickered to life. A faint female voice crackled through static. Steady. Calm and unshaken. Reaper 1 to Overwatch. Mission complete. Target secured. Tell command. We're all coming home this time. The transmission faded into the night. 2 weeks later, the wind over Helmand roared like a living thing, carrying dust, heat, and the distant echo of gunfire. Riley Ward adjusted her scope and pressed the earpiece deeper into place. Her position was perfect. High ridge, wind steady, line of sight over the entire canyon. Below her, SEAL Team 9 moved through the ravine, silent shadows among broken stone. They were her new family, and they'd stopped asking questions about how a lone Army sergeant ended up with a SEAL unit. When Reaper 1 spoke on comms, nobody questioned it. Overwatch, this is Alpha, came the SEAL team leader's voice. Movement grid 925. Confirm? Riley exhaled slowly, her finger brushing the trigger. Through the scope, she saw 3 insurgents setting up a mounted gun. Copy, Alpha, she said. Target 1, 1,200 meters, wind from the east. Hold your advance. She squeezed the trigger once. The shot cracked across the valley. The heavy gunner dropped. His partner turned. Second shot, second drop. Silence. Then the team leader's voice, confirmed. Reaper 1, you've still got it. A faint smile ghosted her lips. Didn't know I'd lost it. Minutes passed. The team moved forward, clearing ruins and tunnels that once housed enemy command posts. The mission was supposed to be simple. Gather intel, extract, no engagement. But simplicity never lasted in Helmand. A voice suddenly cut through the radio. Sharp. Panicked. Not one of theirs. Overwatch. This is Delta Command. Team 9, abort mission. You're walking into an The rest dissolved into static. Riley froze. Say again, Command? Nothing. Then another voice. Calm, deliberate. Replaced it. Nice to hear your voice again, Sergeant Ward. Every muscle in her body went rigid. Captain Joanne Mills. Her heart pounded. How are you transmitting on this channel? You didn't think I'd vanish that easily, did you? You should have stayed dead, Ward. You were a good ghost. Her blood ran cold. Below, SEAL Team 9 was already reacting, forming defensive lines. Rifles up, eyes scanning every ridge. Riley spoke quickly. Alpha, it's Mills. He's hijacked the frequency. Prepare for contact, the leader cursed. Copy that. You have eyes on? Riley scanned through her scope. Nothing but rock and shadow. Then movement. Half a mile out. Heat signatures, 10, maybe more, flanking fast. She marked them. Incoming hostiles, northwest slope. 11 tangos. Range 1400. Correction 1200. Understood. Engage at will. Her shots came like thunderclaps. One after another. Precise. Merciless. Every bullet found its mark. Every echo carried the name she'd earned the hard way. Reaper 1. When the dust settled, only one figure remained standing in the chaos below. Mills. He wasn't in uniform anymore, just black tactical gear, eyes hidden behind mirrored shades. He raised a radio to his mouth, his voice smooth and venomous. "You still don't get it, do you? They'll replace me." "Like they replaced you." Riley steadied her breathing. "Not today." Her finger tightened. But before she could fire, the ground near Mills erupted. A grenade. SEALs were closing in. He vanished into smoke and debris, radio signal gone. By the time Team 9 regrouped at the extraction point, the air was thick with dust and the smell of cordite. The SEAL commander's voice crackled through her headset. "All teams clear." "Good shooting, Reaper 1. Riley lowered her rifle, gaze lingering on the horizon. "Copy that," she said softly. "But he's still out there." When the helo lifted off, the sun was setting, a blood-red disk sinking into the sand. Riley sat by the open door, wind tearing through her hair, face streaked with grit and exhaustion. One of the SEALs leaned toward her. "What now?" She looked out over the endless desert and whispered, "Now? We hunt ghosts." The mountains of Kunar were silent that night, too silent. No wind, no insects, no sound except the distant hum of generators from the forward base below. Riley Ward crouched on a rocky ledge, her rifle cradled against her shoulder, her body still and calm despite the storm inside her. She'd been hunting Mills for 3 weeks. Every lead, every intercepted signal had brought her closer, and now, finally, she had him cornered. Below, hidden inside an abandoned communications outpost, Mills's mercenary crew moved like ghosts, 15 men, all armed, all trained. But this wasn't about them. It was about the man who'd betrayed her, her team, and the code she lived by. Through her scope, she spotted him, standing in the glow of a dying fire, holding a transmitter. Even from this distance, she could see his smirk. He'd been waiting for her. Her radio buzzed. "Reaper 1, this is Alpha. We've got your position. Awaiting your call." Riley hesitated. She could call in the strike. End it clean, but this wasn't a mission anymore. This was something older, heavier. She pressed her earpiece. "Negative, Alpha. Hold your position." "Ward, that's not the plan." "Was it ever?" she said quietly and cut the channel. She slid down the ridge like a shadow, boots whispering over sand and stone. The moonlight painted the ruins in silver and black. Inside, the air smelled of rust, oil, and betrayal. She found him in the control room. Calm, cigarette glowing in the dark. "You really don't know when to quit," Mills said, voice smooth as ever. "They sent you to kill me?" She stepped forward, rifle steady. "No one sent me. Then why come?" He flicked ash to the floor. "You could have stayed the hero, the girl who carried 3 SEALs out of hell." She aimed straight at his chest. "You tried to bury me there." He chuckled, unbothered. "You think you're different from me?" "They used us both. The difference is, I learned the system before it learned me." "By selling coordinates? By killing your own?" He shrugged. "Collateral damage. You don't win wars by following rules." Riley's voice turned to ice. "Then you never understood what we were fighting for." He dropped the cigarette, crushing it under his boot. "So what now? You pull the trigger, walk away? They'll still lie to you, still use your name to sell their version of truth." She didn't answer. He smiled faintly. "Guess the Reaper really did come for me." That's when she saw it. The blinking light on the transmitter beside him. He'd armed a beacon. "Airstrike inbound." Riley dove as the first shell screamed overhead. The blast ripped through the outpost, hurling her against the wall. Dust, heat, and chaos consumed everything. She coughed, half-blind, ears ringing. Mills was gone. No, not gone. Running. She chased him through fire and debris, lungs burning. He stumbled into the open, limping toward a ridge where an extraction chopper waited. "Stop!" she shouted. He turned, pistol raised. A flash of muzzle. A bullet tore through her shoulder, spinning her sideways. She hit the ground hard. Pain exploded, but she forced her rifle up. Her breath slowed. Time seemed to freeze. One shot, just one. The round cut through the smoke, struck him clean through the chest. Mills fell backward, collapsing near the edge, eyes wide in shock. He tried to speak, but only blood came out. Riley limped closer, lowering her weapon. For a moment there was no hatred, only the hollow weight of what could have been. He whispered something. She leaned closer. "We're all ghosts." Then his pulse stopped. Hours later at dawn, the recovery team arrived. They found the outpost leveled, bodies scattered, and Riley sitting against a rock, bleeding and half-conscious. Her rifle beside her, her dog tags on the ground. When the medic touched her shoulder, she stirred just enough to whisper into her cracked radio. "Reaper 1 to base. Target neutralized. Mission complete." Then silence. Weeks passed. No one could confirm what happened in those final minutes. The body of Joanne Mills was recovered, but Riley Ward was listed as MIA, presumed killed in the blast. But stories spread. SEALs returning from missions swore they'd heard her voice over comms, guiding them out of ambushes, calling wind corrections only she could have known, her old call sign, faint but clear, Reaper 1, Overwatch. Months later, deep in the Pentagon's archives, a secure channel flickered to life. A voice came through, calm, steady, unmistakable. "This is Reaper 1, GhostNet, secure. Tell them, no soldier left behind." The technician monitoring the channel froze. "Sir, that frequency's been inactive for months." His supervisor frowned. "Who's using it?" The tech swallowed. "No one, sir." The line's untraceable. They stared at the screen. The signal faded as quietly as it had come, and somewhere, in a place beyond maps or missions, the Reaper watched over them still.